let me ask you this. With JT Daniels, when he was originally, uh, they said that he tested positive for COVID. Um, at that point in time, if you were a Michigan fan, would you have been jumping for joy because you didn't want to see him, and you want to see Stetson Bennett, or would you have been more indifferent because you don't think there's much of a difference between the quarterbacks?
Well, from everything I gather, Stetson Bennett is the starting quarterback. And so JT Daniels, I will be surprised unless Georgia gets in a hole and Stetson Bennett is mostly to blame and he just gets pulled, that JT Daniels is going to play. So it's more about security or insurance of having a capable backup quarterback who has experience. So, and I'm not saying that Stetson Bennett's better than JT Daniels. That's not my call. Um, I tend to think that JT Daniels is better than Stetson Bennett, actually.
Yeah.
But if I was coaching Georgia, JT Daniels would most likely be the starter right now. But Bennett's the starter. And so I look at it more from the standpoint of just it's supplying Georgia with that backup security. I don't think
Yeah.
it really changes anything as long as Stetson Bennett's healthy.
Yeah, and I also prefer Stetson Bennett to play. And it's, if anything, just due to his miniature in size. One issue that smaller quarterbacks can have is the tendency to get their passes blocked and tipped at the line of scrimmage. So when you think about the strength of this Michigan football team, particularly on defense, which is their
Yep.
ability to generate a pass rush, well, even in times where you're not able to necessarily sack a quarterback, just to get your hands up, and we've seen this line do that plenty of times this year. Get your hands up and bat some passes down could be almost equally demoralizing as a sack can be, because even though you may not be causing loss of yards, that does play a factor in the quarterback's head, right? Because now on those, crossing routes or 5 yards in the ends or wherever there is, anytime they got to come over the middle of the field, they have to maybe throw that ball a couple of inches higher than they probably are used to throwing it, right? And we know that these guys are all creatures of habit and repetition. Well, normally they have like their passing lengths they're used to in practice and throwing it. Well, all of a sudden now the ball's getting tipped, that throws your whole rhythm off. So I think that's another area that can benefit this Michigan defense with Stetson Bennett playing. Plus, he's not extremely mobile, so I definitely believe it aids him to play, and he can make mistakes as well.
Yeah, he's not Michael Vick, that's for
No,
sure.
by
He's
no
not
means.
that, but he's a mobile quarterback. He can run. He's who am I going to compare him to? The Michigan State scene. I think he's definitely more mobile than CJ Stroud and probably Peyton Thorne. And he's in that Adrian Martinez mode. He's that fast, quick, maybe more so, but he's not as big a body. He's not as tough to bring down as Adrian Martinez. He's not a big body athlete, no. And like you say about batting passes down, deflecting passes, I know if I was a quarterback, that would get in my head. So I got to think it would, like you say, if suddenly they're not seeing the same, or they get a pass batted or two passes batted, then they're starting to look for passing lanes that they didn't have to look. They can't make the assumption that they've got a clean passing lane to throw downfield. Like you say, they may throw it slightly higher, or they've got, that just gives them another thing that they got to process and think about when they're back to pass, that, oh, I got to look for a lane. I can't just, this makes it even tougher to find an open receiver. Besides finding an open receiver, I got to find a passing lane in my offensive line.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about.
Yeah, in a matter of seconds,
Yeah.
when you have guys coming at you, and I think another thing too is, look, especially if Daxter Hill doesn't play. I mean, we know that Georgia has the weapons to counteract what Michigan loves to do well. The question would be essentially, how does Georgia offensive line uh, do with giving those extra couple seconds, that Stetson would need. I personally believe very much in David Ojabo and Hutchinson. They're going to be able to get home. But I think another player that's going to have a huge game is Josh. I always mix up him and his brother. His brother is James Ross, but Josh Ross is the guy. Josh Ross.
Other people do that too.
Fun fact. I actually went to school with James Ross. We went to the same school at one point in time. Fun fact. We're both from Detroit. Anyway, Josh is going to have to have a big game, because also you want to be able to keep Georgia in those predictable passing situation. So, limiting Georgia's run game is going to be important, and we know Josh can do that very well. He's a very interesting player because he has times where he can disappear on the field, but also, I don't know if you notice sometimes, Mark, but sometimes he'll just shoot through the line of scrimmage really well. I mean, ideally speaking, reading the play, and the great linebackers are able to read the play, see the gap. Well, hopefully your defensive line does a good enough job holding up their gaps. They see that gap and they can split through there like lightning and meet the running back. And it's a beautiful thing to see when it happens. And so there are times where like he'll just disappear, then he'll bam, like he'll come out of nowhere. You're like, man, what was that? And he's also kind of awesome because he uses a neck roll. You don't really see that nowadays, but he's going to have a big game as well. But let me. So I mean, how do you think the Michigan front seven, pairs up against the Russian attack for Georgia?
Well, we got about 10 minutes here, and since people really want us to break down this game, I'm going to give you my best. Not that Dre's not going to talk for the next 10 minutes. I won't say it like that, but I'm going to give you my best takes on this game and what I think is important. So we'll start right there.
Okay.
I made the comment either on here or to somebody else when I was asked about keys to the game. Is the biggest key to this game that I can see, and the thing that I will be watching for immediately when Georgia's throwing the ball, is how they're protecting Stetson Bennett. And not just how effective they are, but what are they doing to protect him? Ohio State got a little, I don't know if it's cocky, arrogant, or just they had confidence in their tackles to hold up against Michigan's rush ends. So Dre's telling us Ohio State was cocky, arrogant, and they paid a huge price for it, which I didn't understand. As the game unfolded, I didn't get it because I'm thinking Ohio State's 3 wide receivers are the ones doing all the damage. Yeah, you got a tight end who's going to play in the NFL, but you don't need him as a pass catcher today. He's not doing you any good. Keep him in. Keep him in. He's a big body. He's a tight end. And I'm not talking about letting a back chip Ojabo or Hutchinson on their way on a pass route. That's not good enough. I'm talking about like full pass pro, like max protect. That's what I would do. Unless they've got a lot of confidence that their tackles are better than Ohio State's, which they might be, but Ohio State's 2 are certainly going to play on Sundays and most likely start. But Georgia's might be better, and they might feel confident that they can hang on an island against those 2. Again, I wouldn't take that risk. I'd go full max protection most of the time, or at least I might trust those guys initially. And hey, if it works and they hold up, great. If they don't, well, we've practiced and we've got the plays and the pass pro concepts in our game plan to go immediately right to him. I'm not seeing Stetson Bennett on his back more than maybe twice before I'm like, okay, I've seen enough. We're max protecting. And I just need my receivers, and I need And I guess I'm going to play 2 tight ends because I want Bowers out on pass routes. I don't want him staying in because I need that mismatch downfield. So that's my second key. So my first key is these 2 tackles of Georgia holding up against Ajabo and Hutchinson, and what Georgia's game plan is in terms of helping those 2 guys. My next one would be seeing Brock Bowers downfield and how Michigan takes that on from a safety / linebacker perspective. Who gets that assignment, or what number of players get that assignment, and how effective they are, because I think that's a tough matchup.